Having no baseball games and watch is like having the planning group meeting start at 10:30 at night.
Okay, well, it looks to me like we have a quorum. I'm sure more people will be coming in, but I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the February meeting of the Mira Mesa Community Planning Group. We'll start with non-agenda public comment. I did have one request from Barry Vaz for a non-agenda public comment. Barry?
Thank you, Jeff. This is something that cropped up this afternoon. As you all recall, I believe it was last spring, we came to you and asked for residents to call in to the county meeting to confirm their support for $3.65 million to be used for evaluation and improvements at the epicenter, whereby the county would begin operating it as a teen and community center. Since that time, they have been working with the city. They sent engineers out to evaluate the building, developed a list of stakeholders whom they're going to reach out to, and we had a little bit of distressing news. So the city owns the epicenter, which has been closed for about 5 years. And in going through the engineering evaluation, the county has determined that in addition to the money already budgeted, they're going to need another $4.35 million to bring the building up to code to reopen it. I was stunned. I made them clarify, was it a total of 4.3? No, this is an additional 4.35 above and beyond the 3.65 already budgeted in the current year's fiscal budget. So the county still wants to go forward with the project, which I think is amazing because the programming they have is going to benefit the students at Mira Mesa High School greatly. The county will be meeting, I believe it's next Tuesday, and there will be notices going out. My first ask will be if you get one to forward it to all of your lists. The discussion was to budget for it, but there's a push to put it not in the upcoming budget, but in the 23-24 budget. And as we all know, the further out you push things, the more chance there is that it will never happen. So County Supervisor Tara Lawson-Remer is going to attempt to have this moved from the projected budget a year in the future to be included in the budget taking effect July 1 of this year. And it will be capital item 16, the preliminary capital project list, item number 16, at Tuesday's Board of Supervisors meeting. And we need to show them once again the support that Mira Mesa has for this project. The money can be budgeted. It's just, it was going to be pushed out a year. I think a lot of that was because there was already the 3.65. County Supervisor is firmly behind this project. What we need to do is show the rest of the Board of Supervisors that we are still behind it also. And there's a likelihood that with enough show of support, they can be convinced to move it to the upcoming budget and continue the work that's being done now. So a lot of you will in the morning see these things coming in on email lists that you belong to. I would ask that you pass it on and we get as many people as we can to call into that meeting or to give e-comments showing their support.
Okay, well, that's not good news. What are they considering? Just building a new building instead of renovating that one? I mean, if we're up to $8 million.
I know. I have heard, and I don't have any confirmation on this, that the issue with the epicenter is very similar to what we have with Gil Johnson, that when you get into the demolition, because of the time period in which that building was constructed, there's probably asbestos issues and other things that would dramatically increase the price of a demolition. And when added to new construction might actually be more expensive than just fixing this thing.
I mean, it was built in the 70s, not in the 50s. I wouldn't think they would have
No.
been asbestos in that time frame.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because even with the homes in Mira Mesa, all those lovely popcorn ceilings, depending on what part of the 70s your home was built, those popcorn ceilings may or may not have asbestos in them. So that was a time period very ripe for asbestos use. As I said, it's not confirmed, but if they're willing to put 8 million into it, it must be even more expensive than that to demolish.
Can I jump in real quick? It's Keith Flitner, and I'm new to the board, but
Hi,
I
Keith.
was there. Hey, pleasure. I was there when Epicenter was funded and opened. In fact, I did my volunteer of the year dinner there in 2000. And there's almost 0% chance that there's asbestos in that building because it was built during a time when asbestos was already past the lawsuit phase. So if that's the information you're getting, I would maybe doubt all of the information you're getting as being credible. It's that's shocking to me.
Well, the asbestos was not from the county. That is what I'm being told from contractor types I've spoken with. The information about the budget dollars needed is what came from the county.
Yeah. Well, it seems like it's commingled information. So if you can separate it out, that's great. But again.
Oh, absolutely. No, that was only an answer to Jeff's comment about why would it be not good enough? Why would it not be a better option to tear down the building? I don't know that from the county. The county sent their engineers out. I can ask them, but that is not going to be part of the messaging that goes out tonight. It's strictly going to be that after evaluation, more money is needed. The county's willing to pay that to renovate this building, but they want to get it in the upcoming budget and not the one after that, so that this process does not stop.
All right, thanks, Barry. If you want to send me something to forward out to the whole planning group, send it to me and I will do that.
Thank you,
Hey,
Jeff.
I have a quick question there, Barry. When the city did their evaluation a couple of years ago, did they bring up the asbestos thing?
Okay, we're getting off track here. I
Oh.
tried to answer a question and I'm very tired. I've been working 14-hour days.
Never
I
mind.
answered Jeff's question, and this has gone down a whole rabbit hole. There's nothing in the county thing about asbestos.
Okay,
The city has not said anything about asbestos. Asbestos came up as part of Gil Johnson. That was speculation by some contractor types I've spoken with. That has nothing to do with the messaging that will go out. The messaging that will go out is that the county wants to go forward with this project. They need more money, but we need to once again speak up that we have an interest and support this project, because the original money came from a project where the community ended up not supporting it and it was canceled. So we got the original funding from a project that was canceled due to lack of community support. There's more money needed. If we show that we are still invested in this project, still have community support, there's a good chance that money can be put in the upcoming budget and continue the process rather than having it kicked down the road another year and maybe derail the whole process.
All right, thank you, Barry. We do have a couple people who have to leave early, so I want to move on. Is there any other non-agenda public comment tonight?
Yes.
Who is that?
This is Kathy Lippett. Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, can it be quick, please?
Sure. I just wanted to make a comment about the city that San Diego frequently cites their inability to retain valuable staff, and about the vacancies in city staff that undermine city services. And a significant factor for that is the issue of revolving door phenomenon, where city workers leave for higher paying industry jobs that where these industries benefit from hiring the city staffers. They take with them valuable city insider process information that benefits industries that have projects for the city. So council aides, project supervisors, department directors that leave and become industry consultants, lobbyists, or project applicants is a real problem. It also sets up an issue of making it more difficult for the community, authentic community voices, to have a fair an even playing field because they're up against not only lobbyists, attorneys, etc., but these are people with who have developed relationships with city staff, etc. I don't know if it's a practical solution, but I wonder if the consideration might be that there be like a 5-year time requirement that after hire that you do not, there's a similar to no compete clauses. Anyway, I just wanted to put that out there for consideration. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other non-agenda public comment? Hearing none, we'll go on. Modifications of the agenda. I may move things around a little bit. Our speaker under new business needs to leave by 7:30. And we also, I believe we'll have the commanding officer of Miramar here, although I don't see him yet, but I'll move those two up if I need to. I'd like to adopt the previous meeting minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes? In that case, I'd like Tiffany to please call the roll so that we can get it, make sure we have our record of planning group members who are here. So please state your name when she calls you and whether you approve the minutes.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm just going to go ahead and do the roll call, and then you can give me your input as well. Kent Lee. Is Kent not here?
Not here.
Okay. Andrew?
Approve.
Thank you. Lilith?
Approve.
Thank you. Ian?
Approve.
Craig?
Approve.
Jackson? Yes, thank you. Ralph? I didn't see him on here either.
You, Ralph, no.
John LaBelle? I didn't see him either. Okay. Joe?
Yes, I approve.
Thank you. Barry?
Approve.
Thank you. Jess?
Approve.
Yep. Dorothy? Lawrence? Not here?
No, she's here. Dorothy.
Oh, Dorothy,
Approve the
are you
minutes.
on mute? Oh, I see you there. Sorry. Oh, I think you're on mute, Dorothy. If you want to give me a thumbs up for approval, I can see you. So yes, thank you so much. Keith? Our new member?
We
I
haven't
am, but
approved
I
it
wasn't
yet.
at the last meeting, so I don't think I should vote on it.
Yeah, I was going to ask. So I'll leave you off of this one. Craig Radke?
Approve.
Julia Schreiber?
I don't see her here.
I don't see her either. Harkey?
Approve.
Thank you. I approve. Marvin? Marvin here?
I don't see Marv either.
Yeah, I don't see Marv either. Okay. Justin Mandelbaum? I don't see Justin either.
He said he couldn't be here.
And Mike Linton? Is Mike? I see Mike here. Mike, you're on mute if you approve. I see he's still muted, so I don't. Mike Linton?
Patty, can you wake up Mike?
Do you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm driving. Hey, I have to abstain. I wasn't at the last meeting, so
Okay.
Okay.
sorry. Thanks.
All right. So we have 11 approved.
Okay. Minutes are approved and we have a quorum. I don't see Colonel Bedell here yet. So what I'd like to do next is to fill the vacancy we have. We have a business vacancy. Keith Flittner has volunteered to fill that position. I sent some information out about him before. Keith, you want to introduce yourself?
Okay, here we go. How are you, everybody? Greetings from Louisiana. I think Jeff sent a great intro out. I was involved in the Mira Mesa community back in the 90s when I was new to the community and my daughter was born in 95. I joined the town council soon thereafter, was president for a couple of years, was fortunate enough to be voted volunteer of the year back in 2000. I still have the sign from the 4th of July parade that was on the car. And so Community Pride Committee, Landscape Maintenance District Community Chair, was on the planning group for a little while back then as well, until I still remember emotionally one night I was leaving for a meeting and my young 4-year-old daughter was grabbing my ankle saying, "Dad, no more meetings, no more meetings." And I came to that meeting, Jeff, I don't know if you remember it, but I resigned that night because I realized I'd overcommitted myself at the time. My daughter's now 27 and just moved out last weekend. Isn't life interesting? But it's great to come back around full circle. Jeff and Pam Stevens have always been hallmarks of the community and great friends over the years and kept in touch. And after having lunch with Jeff and Pam, Jeff mentioned that there was an opening for a business representative, and I happen to be working in the Miramar area at a fuel valve company there, a long-term company in the area. Actually goes back to the 60s. Turns out the owners of the company grew up about a mile away from me in Claremont, where I grew up, and moved to Scripps Ranch, and one of the owners graduated from Madison High School like I did. So again, longtime roots in the community, and love to serve. And I'm still an active person in scouting. I'm an advancement chair for the El Camino Real district up in Orange County. So I again appreciate the opportunity to be involved with like-minded people and see if we can't, of course, give more than we take. And that's what makes our society work well. So a pleasure to meet all of you and hopefully be involved with your group once again.
Good. So I think just to save time, is there anyone who would object to having Keith fill the business member position?
I don't object, but do we need the one meeting rule, or is that not apply?
No, not for filling a vacancy.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, hearing no objections, I am going to accept Keith as the new member by acclamation. And Keith, welcome to the planning group. Welcome back.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone. And hope when I say things, it doesn't come across confrontational. I always enjoy a healthy debate. I think that's what makes our democracy strong. And this is just one piece of our democracy that makes our community what it is and why people want to live in it. So again, thank you for asking me to join again, Jeff, and the support of everybody there.
Thank you, Keith. All right, I'm going to defer my report. The commanding officer visitor of Miramar is not here yet, and Kristen asked me to put him on the agenda. We'll see if he comes in a little later. So I'm going to go right to new business, since William Perno, who's giving the presentation, is actually doing this for 2 planning groups tonight. So I have this as an action item. The amendments have actually been withdrawn from the city, so we may not want to take an action on this, but I still think we should hear what he has to say. And if we do want to take any action on this, we can do so. So William Perno, go ahead. And if you need to share your screen, let me just allow you to do that here.
Thank you, Chair Stevens, and good evening, everyone. And thank you for your flexibility and allowing me to present so I can hop over to the other planning group. I'm William Perno. I'm an alcohol and other drug prevention specialist with SAY San Diego. I'm going to be sharing a PowerPoint presentation with you tonight, and then I'll make these slides and some other information available to your chair to share out with you with your community group and any members or guests that would like that. So I'm going to be talking tonight, as your chair referenced, the proposed cannabis retail outlet ordinance amendments that were proposed by Councilmember Whitburn from Council District D3. So a little bit about who we are. SAY San Diego, we're funded by the County of San Diego Behavioral Health Services to do alcohol and other drug prevention work with the community. SAY has a large portion of the city of San Diego through two prevention contracts. I'm in the central region. We also have the north central region, which covers the area where your planning group is at. So this is a little bit about our Central Region Prevention Coalition and our focus on working with communities for alcohol and other drug prevention and that focus on youth access. What's really important to note, we are not trying to shut down the local cannabis industry. We do recognize that city and state permitted cannabis businesses can sell cannabis to persons of legal age. And in fact, some of the work that we're doing is with a local retailer on responsible retail service, much like you would see with the alcohol industry. We work with some of the alcohol industry for responsible retail services, best practices. They're doing things right. And then there are people that sometimes don't do things right, but there is a responsible use and consumption there. So what did Councilmember Whitburn propose? What was at stake? What is still at stake? He's pulled this from the Community Planners Committee and the Planning Commission that was scheduled for March 24th, but he still has this proposal that went to the Planning Commission and Land Use and Housing back on December 9th. So what is at stake? It's the removal of all local sensitive uses from the City of San Diego local ordinance. Right now there's restrictions of 1,000 feet for cannabis retailers from youth sensitive places, such as population and resource-based parks, playgrounds, libraries, churches, residential care facilities, and even residences with a 100-foot separation from residential zone boundaries. And the proposal by Councilmember Whitburn would remove all of these. Additionally, state law has a minimum requirement of 600 feet from a K through 12 school. The City of San Diego, a little bit farther with 1,000 feet in a local ordinance. His proposal would shrink that distance to the 600-foot minimum requirement by state law, 2 city blocks, or the length of 2 football fields from a school. In 2010, when the City of San Diego was looking at these restrictions, they had a medical marijuana task force. And part of that was looking at requirements related to distance. Interestingly, Councilmember Whitburn at that time was a community member, and he was part of that medical marijuana task force. That task force was recognized for their extensive community outreach they did, including to community planning groups and the Community Planners Committee. Proposition 64 passed in 2016. This was a statewide initiative that legalized recreational sales of marijuana in California, absolutely allows local government, local cities to regulate and tax marijuana. In fact, Prop 64 clearly states that local jurisdictions can restrict where cannabis businesses are located if they choose to allow that in their city, which the City of San Diego has done. City of San Diego local ordinance here is what we have currently. The link is at the bottom of this slide. You have a maximum of 4 retail outlets per council district, 36 citywide with the 9 council districts, and those are the sensitive use restrictions there, as well as 100 feet from residential zone boundaries. This is getting it right from the start. This is a state organization that has best practices, model ordinances for cannabis businesses to be successful and at the same time protect public health and safety considerations. One of their documents here, again, the link at the bottom of the slide, Principles for Protecting Youth, Public Health and Equity in Cannabis Regulation. One of those key things that they have is requiring buffer zones between cannabis retail outlets and schools, including colleges, plus some other youth-sensitive uses there. This is a map that they have on their website for what our neighbors up and down the state of California are doing regarding cannabis and local ordinances in their community. We have a data point as of January 1st, 2021. There are 539 cities and counties in California, and at this time point, 173 of those jurisdictions were allowing some type of cannabis sales, either medical or cannabis at a retail storefront there. 171 of those, or over 98%, were exercising their local control by passing applicable cannabis policies beyond state law. So we have to look at state law as the minimum requirements. Local jurisdictions can go above that. A couple of examples: Del Norte County, protecting youth by increasing that buffer zone like we have in our City of San Diego from schools and retailers to 1,000 feet. 52 other jurisdictions have increased that buffer beyond the 600 feet minimum in state law. Stanislaus County increased the number of sites with a required buffer from retailers and other youth-sensitive uses, as well as 117 other jurisdictions. So this is getting it right from the start. They're best practices. They've been around for a few years. City of San Diego ordinance, almost 10 years old now, or that amount of time. We've had these policies there all along, with the exception of protections from colleges, junior colleges, and universities. Not for a lack of trying. Back in 2011, the Community Planners Committee and the Planning Commission both recommend those safeguards, those sensitive uses there. However, it did not make it into the final ordinance for the City of San Diego. This is a map, a slide showing what's available in each council district for retail storefronts. This may have changed a little bit, but the link is there to bring you to the most current document if it has changed recently. And I underlined citywide delivery because the retail storefronts also have the ability to do vehicle delivery of cannabis. So cannabis is available anywhere in the city. If there's not a storefront near you, there is still a vehicle delivery that can deliver right to your doorstep. Again, this is that document showing the different codes of what the colors are. So concerns. This item was rushed to the Planning Commission and Land Use and Housing on December 9th, both committees on the same day. There were no authentic community voices. There was no seeking of information from any planning groups, community members, or the Community Planners Committee. Concerns. Some local cannabis retailers spoke at those meetings on December 9th to say that they were not asking for these changes and they were not in agreement with the proposals removing all the youth-sensitive restrictions. PJ Fitzgerald, at that time the Deputy Director of the DSD, Development Services Cannabis Division, now retired, noted at Land Use and Housing that the City Development Services Cannabis Division was not asking for these changes. So getting it right from the start has another document. It's a checklist. And one of the items on that checklist is working to prohibit conflicts of interest in regulatory bodies and advisory commissions and boards. That's really important. So some questions to consider. Who asked for these proposed amendments? Why such a rush? Are there any conflicts of interest? And most importantly, will time be taken to gather meaningful input from authentic community voices such as your planning group? The process right now is missing your community voices. I had in here the links to the meetings that your chair referenced. This item has been pulled from, but it's still an item that was presented. So this is a link to your city council members at their meeting agendas. I would encourage you to ask for a presentation from Councilmember Whitburn or from your council representative on what is going on with cannabis and the proposals in the city of San Diego. This is my contact information here. I'll go ahead and stop sharing now and happily answer any questions that you might have. Thank you. And I put my contact information in the chat as well.
Jeff, you're muted.
I got a request that you put back up the list of locations.
I can do that.
By community. Okay, so those ones under Council District 6 here are ours. So three of them are in Mira Mesa. Okay, I think Lil had her hand up. Lil, do you have a question?
No, it was an accident. I'm on my phone. My internet's out, so I accidentally did that. Sorry.
Okay. Are there other questions?
Jeff?
Yeah.
I think I would like to point out that in Council District 6, the addresses for, say, MedMen on Convoy Street, that's one of their outlets. The Council District 6, as it will come to be, of course, and outside the Mira Mesa planning group area, is actually down on Sorrento Valley Road. And so we actually have more than the ones that are just listed here.
Yeah, so
It appears the one on Sorrento Valley Road is listed under District 1.
yes, it is in District 1 right now, but of course the redistricting will shuffle a number of these around.
Got it.
Yes.
And just so everyone's aware, there are going to be some map changes with the council districts. I'm sure you're aware of that. But any of those changes with where the outlets are located will not take effect until after the November 2022 elections there. So if there is some shifting, the city ordinance may need to be looked at with the 4 per council districts. There's a possibility there may be 5 in a council district. And that from our standpoint isn't really an issue. The CUPs, it's at the time of application that the sensitive uses, matter and what's around them. If the council boundaries have changed because of the census, then that's the way it changes. It shouldn't impact a business that's already established because the council boundaries changed there. That's just my opinion on that.
Andrew, you have a question?
Yes, thank you for your presentation. I know you spoke really fast, maybe you speak fast naturally, Maybe you're just trying to hurry up. So can you go over again? You said that this was proposed by Council Member Whitburn. What exactly did he propose? And are you opposed to what he proposed?
He proposed removing all the sensitive use restrictions. All those sensitive uses, I'll go back to the first slides here. This is what he's proposed. And I do note, as your chair noted, that he has pulled this from the CPC and the Planning Commission. I will share that letter with your chair so you can see in his own words the reasons why. But this was what's at risk with the proposal there. It was a unilateral proposal. Again, it didn't have any authentic community voices. And for me, I don't want to speak for your community group. It is your authentic community voice. I simply want to educate what was proposed. You might ask a question as why it was proposed. You might wonder why you were left out of the process and might want to ask some questions about that. But whether or not I agree with the proposals, I'm simply stating what they are. I think there are risks involved when you remove all the sensitive uses, but I don't want to speak in any way, shape, or form for your authentic community voice. My job is to help educate you and have a conversation, and then you make those decisions what you want to do with the information.
Craig Jackson, you have your hand up?
Yes, I would like to say personally, and this is just my own opinion, that removal of the restrictions, I think, is a bad idea and would be opposed to City Council going forward with this proposal.
Okay. So I have a couple of comments. One is that I can see why you would want these restrictions near children, near schools, for example, but there are some of these. I don't really see a good reason not to have them near libraries, churches, and residential care facilities. Also, there is a side effect of this, which is that these have been concentrated in certain areas like Miramar because 1,000 feet is large enough, and these activities are so common that there are only a few places where you can find where there isn't one of these within 1,000 feet, and so you get this concentration of these outlets in places like Miramar. But strangely, Councilman Whitburn, the reason he withdrew this is rather different. He was concerned about equity, meaning that, I don't know, maybe Mr. Perno can answer this. Do individual areas get taxes from these? Because what he said was he wanted to make sure there was equity in that these were distributed widely enough that they were available to in all areas.
The city collects tax revenue. In 2021, it was around $22 million they collected locally tax on cannabis sales, recreational sales in the city of San Diego. I think the equity piece that he's referencing is social equity licenses for people perhaps impacted by the war on drugs. Access, there are some areas where there are not a retail storefront, and that's where delivery is an option there. I know one thought might be to have delivery where that would be free if there wasn't a cannabis retail outlet within a certain distance. And so you bring up some good points there. I know that there are some things and best practices, and we can look at what's going on in other areas and stuff to help, guide that conversation. But this was a proposal to remove everything. And his initial messaging was he wanted to align our local ordinances with the minimum requirements in state law because the public voted in favor of Proposition 64. And I just want to note that Proposition 64 that legalized recreational sales of cannabis in California absolutely allows for local control. That was part of what people voted for as well. So those sensitive use restrictions are part of what a local jurisdiction can do for Proposition 64. I think, some of the planning groups, the conversations that they've had have been around also being left out of the process and how they feel about that. And I know at least one planning group did an action item to send a letter to the Community Planners Committee objecting to being left out of this process and not having their community consulted or asked for input before this was taken to the Planning Commission and Land Use and Housing. So those are just things that I'm sharing, maybe of things to consider for your planning group. But it is a work in progress with it. I hear what you're saying about outlets being concentrated in Miramar. I want to also make a point that there are cannabis production facilities that are in the city of San Diego. There are allowed for 40 of them, and those can be anywhere in the city. And I know a lot of those were around the Miramar Convoy area, but this for the retail outlets has a limit of 4 per council district. So if they're clustered in one area, it's still going to be that limit of 4 per your council district.
Yeah, I think we got something like 18 of the marijuana production facilities.
Correct. That one, and there was a discussion about having a similar thing where they would be spread out throughout the city. At that time, though, the council didn't put that restriction in there, so they are definitely concentrated. But that's a different type of cannabis business that we're talking about tonight. This proposal is just for the cannabis retail outlets. Think of the storefronts where cannabis is sold to the public. And also, I just want to note, there is good research showing that just the outlet itself in an area normalizes cannabis for youth and can lead to greater use by youth and young adults there. So sometimes people ask, well, is it the outlet itself? Is that having an impact? And yes, the answer is yes. But we're not saying no to cannabis businesses. We're saying we have some concerns we want you to be aware of about the removal of all those sensitive use restrictions. And there was a ton of community data. I presented to one planning group last week. They had 3 presentations on this when these restrictions were put in place, but they didn't hear anything when they were proposed to be removed.
Thank you. I see a hand from Ian Kerman.
Yes. I was wondering if you could comment on how the 1,000 feet versus 600 feet would be measured, because my understanding is there's a change in the proposal of how that distance is measured, and if any studies or anything have been done to sort of actually evaluate what the change in both the distance and the way it's measured would have on the placement of these facilities.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you have to be really careful when it comes to measurements. Property line to property line is a traditional measurement from the sensitive use to the cannabis business. We have to be careful when it might be something like front door of the business, because they'll put the door in the back where it's farther away. And we have to be really careful about something called a legal path of travel, which was a proposal that was made in the city of San Diego that said you couldn't simply cross the street. You had to go down the sidewalk, measure to the nearest crosswalk, cross the sidewalk, and then go all the way down the other side of the sidewalk as part of the measurement. And that would have allowed businesses to be sited across the street from each other and stuff there. So how the distance is measured absolutely matters. And a lot of times, in communities, those distance measurements by Development Services Division were called into question, because under the local ordinance, this is the tool that a community has right now to say, you're either within that 1,000 feet or you're beyond 1,000 feet. But there have been, unfortunately, cannabis businesses in the city of San Diego that have been within 1,000-foot limitations, but have still been allowed to open because of how the measurements are done, or simply a variance was given to them despite the distance being less than 1,000 feet.
So my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, with the 1,000-foot measurement, the way it is currently, that's measured by the legal path of travel. But under the 600-foot proposal, that would have been as the crow flies.
I think the only time that legal path of travel would come into discussion if there was some type of topographical barrier or other barrier to allow direct access. So let's say there's a drainage ditch, a culvert, something like that, a hill of a certain elevation, then a different measurement would be made. So I think that might be what you're talking about, but typically the measurements are made property line to property line.
And is that as the crow flies, or is that, down the sidewalk or via streets?
It would be a straight line measurement from the nearest points of the sensitive use to the nearest point of the proposed cannabis retail outlet. The only time that different type of measurement comes up if there's some type of barrier. And the 600-foot state requirement is a straight line measurement. And the community has had some robust discussions over how measurements have been done. And there was, I know, at least one where a fence was put up blocking the path of travel to a church, so then they could use a topographical barrier measurement, and that upset a community very much. So I think that was the Rancho Bernardo planning group that was very upset about how that business had erected a fence to block a path of travel to use a different measurement instead of a straight line. So there are a lot of nuances to this, but typically it's a straight line, property line to property line, unless there's some type of barrier.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
One more question from Craig Radke.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to go along with what you were just talking about. I remember when the restrictions were first brought up years ago, and some businesses that were already existing in the area needed to get approved. There was an issue with one location where some old unused train tracks were considered a barrier. So one business on one side of the train tracks, and another business on the other side of the train tracks, and we were told at the time that you're not allowed to cross the train tracks, so that was considered a barrier. But the other thing I just want to say real quick is I'm kind of along with what Craig Jackson said, where it kind of upsets me that all this work was done years ago to come up with these restrictions, with these, task force and community input, and the idea of someone coming along and trying to remove all that with no community input is kind of offensive to me. And if we want to I know that it's no longer on the agenda for this currently, but if it does get back on the agenda and we don't do some kind of action item tonight, would we have time to, voice our opinion on it before it gets put back onto an agenda?
I think here's what I would suggest. We can form a subcommittee that can keep an eye on the proposal as it comes forward, and then make a recommendation to this group at that point. So unless it comes back so fast that it goes to Planning Commission before the following planning group meeting, we can have this, whenever the subcommittee is ready to make a presentation on it.
That sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, who would like to be on that subcommittee?
Jeff, I'm willing to serve on the subcommittee.
Craig
Willing to
Jackson?
be on it.
I will too. This is Lil.
Lil? Craig Radke?
Yeah, I'll join it.
Okay, we've got two Craigs, Dorothy and Lil. Anybody else?
I'd be willing to. This is Andrew.
Andrew.
But this is a busy time of year for me, but depending on how often you guys meet, I'm willing to do it.
Okay. Craig, you want to chair that committee? Craig?
Which
Either
Craig?
I was thinking Craig Jackson, but either Craig would do.
I'm willing.
All right, so you know who's on it. If you will please keep an eye on this. If I hear anything about it, I will get the information to you, and then what we're looking for is a recommendation to come back to the planning group at the appropriate time.
Hey, Jeff, I have a little word of caution.
Yeah.
If this council person tried removing all these things without notifying anybody, we need to get a hold of our city council person and have them notify us if any changes are proposed like this, because how are we going to know when this is on a docket unless we look at the docket every darn day?
You're right. Denise Torres is here. Denise, will you keep us informed of anything that transpires with regard to this issue?
Sure, I will.
if anything, I hear from our policy advisor getting docketed, anything related to the cannabis one, I'll let you guys know.
Okay. All right, thank you very much for the presentation. Can you stop sharing your screen now?
And thank you for your time and again, your flexibility. I'm going to leave now to go over to the next planning group, but thank you very much for your time and the discussion.
Okay, thank you. All right, we will go on. I still don't see the Miramar commander here, so why don't we go to the community plan update next, Alex?
Good evening, everyone. Alex Frost, City of San Diego Planning Department, project manager for the Mira Mesa Community Plan Update. We did not have a meeting this month. Our target is next month, March 21st, for the discussion on the community discussion draft. I just got the revised draft from the consultants just now, so it will be going through internal review. Hopefully the internal review will be completed within the next 3 weeks, but we shall see.
We'd like to get that as soon as you can. It doesn't have to be in its final form yet.
Agree.
So,
And I did let Jeff know that we are working also to finalize the mobility technical report. So we are still targeting, but I did talk to the mobility planner today, and there's been staffing change. So it may get delayed to April, but we're still targeting for the March completion.
okay, what about the park analysis?
We should have the parks analysis completed March 21st.
Okay. All right, are there any other questions for Alex?
Well, Alex, I would just like to reiterate Jeff's comment. It would be very nice to be able to see this at least a few days before March 21st, so that the various options and the nuances that might be there, we can go back to prior discussions and prior drafts and have a chance to actually make more useful comments on March 21st.
Yes, agreed. I think we're trying to do the latest March 18th. So there is that weekend.
Okay.
Yeah, but it all depends on how fast the internal review is completed. There's been some delays with internal review. But there will be 2 months, like period for review and comments after the presentation, Craig. So there'll be plenty of time to make any edit refinements.
Even if
Okay.
all of the internal review isn't done yet, though, we'd still like to get it before March.
I will discuss with my managers
Okay.
to find out if they're okay with that. I'm happy to share it, but
All right, any more questions for Alex? All right, we will hopefully hear from you within the next 3 weeks or so.
thanks, Jeff.
All right, we'll go on to report of the chair. Just a few things. So the planning group or the planning commission approved the initiation of the plan amendment for the On Point development at Carroll Canyon Road in 805. We had recommended against that project in November due to severe inconsistency with Mira Mesa Community Plan. However, although the planning commission did approve it, they did so with a warning that they would need to, the developer would need to satisfy all of the MHPA and environmental requirements, and that it's not going to be easy to do on that site. So we'll see what they come back with. It turns out also the there's a big restriction from being in the accident potential zone that limits the number of people that can be on that site. So there are a lot of problems with that site. Their developers are trying to do this, but it's not an easy thing to do. And I mean, personally, I don't think they should do it at all, given the inconsistency with the community plan, but we'll see what they come back with.
Jeff, I'd like to make a comment to Alex. I read through the statements that you led with regard to that, and thank you for being so comprehensive and to the point, because those are many of the issues that had come up and which bothered many of us during the initial review here in the planning group. So thank you.
All right, I'll go on to mail. A few pieces of mail. And Nora for a special event permit for the Ragnar Relays Southern California 2022, an approximate 200-mile relay run event that would occur within the city of San Diego right-of-way jurisdiction on April 29th and April 30th. Also received the second assessment letter, cycle issues report and map check for a lot split at 9350 and 9360 Kearney Mesa Road. Received a notice of decision on a conditional use permit to operate a cannabis production facility at 7720 Kennemark Court. And we received a letter from the owner of Ice Skate asking that the San Diego Ice Arena be designated medium-high residential 30 to 44 dwelling units per acre in the community plan. They said they would like to continue to operate the ice arena under a CUP, but they don't want the designation changed to commercial recreational. And apparently they do want to think about developing that as housing sometime in the future. Then there was another NORA for the joint use park at Wangenheim. So that's my report. If anyone wants to see any of the things I just mentioned, just let me know and I will forward them to you. We'll go on to elected officials reports. Anyone here representing the United States Congress? Our longtime representative has taken a new job that doesn't have crazy hours like going to meetings.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah,
I do have some information. I was hoping the representative from Congress would be here because we want to have the air show again this year. But apparently the government has not budgeted that in their item yet. And if they don't create a budget for that, it's not going to happen. So we need somebody in Congress to, I don't know how to put it politely, to put their hands on both of their ears, pull their head out and get this item budgeted so we can have an air show. It's really important. They blew it last year, and the year before was because of the pandemic. Last year, they just said it wasn't important enough and they wouldn't budget it. So if we don't get this budgeted, it won't happen again. 3 years in a row is unacceptable.
I will mention that to the new representative. All right, anyone here from State Senate or State Assembly? I don't see them. Actually, the only representative I see here tonight is Denise. So Denise, do you want to report for Councilman's office?
Basically, I don't have any new updates other than the one Barry mentioned regarding the epicenter. I basically have the same information as her, that the county is trying to pull more money because after, I guess, the reevaluation, they saw that there's some more needed funding for the whole renovation of the epicenter. And then as for the cannabis, I'm not sure if it's related, but our policy advisor, he said that there's a website where you can learn more information for both people who are looking to open up a business and maybe just looking at regulations and rules that impact the community. I can put the website on the chat. And he said also that recently tax on cannabis production facilities went from 8% to 2%. And this is a presentation from District 7 that proposed it. So I can also send that link where you can read more about that. And then he said that if we have or any more questions that you guys have, just let me know. I can forward that to him, or I can also put his email on the chat where you can directly email him about questions regarding the cannabis issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing we want to know about is Councilman Whitburn's proposal.
Oh, okay.
When
So
he-
you don't need the other part.
I don't think so, unless the committee wants it.
Okay.
I think
So
we know that, so.
I'll do take note of that. I'll let him know because he's our policy advisor. He's the one responsible for docketing stuff. So I'll ask him about it. But is it possible that District 7, I should probably get information from District 7 if this is something that they are handling?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, sounds good.
Jeff, I do have a request. Nobody should contact Denise because I'm keeping her really busy and she's doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank
But
you,
yeah.
Denise.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, are there any other elected officials reports tonight? Get a few more people back here again. Are there any announcements?
Yeah, I have an announcement.
Go ahead.
As everybody might not know, Wagenheim has finally started their project. It because of the 2-year delay based on the pandemic, it went from 5.3 million to over $9 million. And even though it's only been 3 weeks since the project started, it's already a month behind. We're just hoping that there's not too many more delays getting this thing going, but they've actually finally started physical work at the place. So we're hoping that it keeps going on.
Yeah, that's been a long haul. When did we first start with that project, Joe?
Oh, we're dating ourselves. It's been, God, so many years ago.
At least a decade, maybe more.
Yes, probably close to 15 years.
All right, any other announcements?
I have something, but it's just a thing. Joe Cox, Wayne's wife, reached out to me about she's going through all her files and found a bunch of boxes that had the marijuana stuff in them from when Wayne was on the board before he passed away. So I'm picking up all the boxes tomorrow. Is this something that either Craig or you are interested in getting? Because I wasn't on the board then. So, all the files and everything that he collected.
Yes, give them to Craig and you put
Yes.
them in that room with all
Okay.
the plants.
Okay, great. Great. Okay,
Keep
super.
me
Thank you.
off the street.
Okay, thank you so much.
Any other announcements? Guess we'll go on to reports for CPC. We had 2 items. One of them was the presentation we just heard tonight on the cannabis regulations, but given to the whole CPC, that was there as an action item, but since it had been withdrawn, CPC didn't take any action on it. We'll defer that until later. The other was a discussion of new procedures for prioritization of capital improvement projects. It's, I have to say, a rather confusing list of items. But there is a survey online. I will let's see. It's sandiego.gov. It's just prioritizing CIP survey. So I would encourage people to take a look at that and see what it is that they're doing. I guess my concern is that the right way to do capital improvements is you develop a community plan and then you build the things that are in the community plan. If you sort of wait and prioritize things by today's need, then long-term needs never get met. So, I mean, some of them, it's reasonable to put safety, for example, as a high priority. But if it's your only priority, then you never get a park built. So that's my main concern about it. But at any rate, I would encourage people to look at that, take that survey and look at what they're doing. The last item is Penasquitos Canyon Citizens Advisory Committee. Pam left me some notes. Craig Radke, were you at that last meeting by any chance?
No, I was not.
Okay. Notes say that a trail counter was installed. They discussed a new kiosk program. I know that a lot of the kiosks are kind of definitely need some attention, and they're working on getting those done. And they're trying to reactivate the task force. So that's maybe one more thing for Denise. The CAC is actually supposed to report to a task force of the council members of the surrounding communities, but the task force hasn't had a meeting for years. And I'm not sure that the council members even know they're supposed to be on it. So Denise, tell Chris that in fact there is a task force that they're supposed to report to.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, that's all I have on the agenda. Is there any other business tonight?
Yes, I have another item, Jeff. I talked to Christian about replacing Ted Bringle on the thing at Miramar. And she said that I could possibly do it if it was approved by you. And she also stated that I would not have to wear my Air Force uniform when I went to the meetings. So I don't know if anybody else has volunteered, but if nobody steps forward for that, please fill my name in.
So yes, thank you, Joe. No one else has volunteered. I would encourage you to do that. Do you need a motion of this group, or can I just appoint you?
Just appoint me, and then if anybody objects, we'll go for a motion.
All right, Joe, I hereby appoint you to the what's it called again?
I got to go back and look at my notes.
Okay.
So community planning for Miramar, something like that.
Right.
CLF something.
Anyone object? In that case, you're good.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. I think.
I endorse you, Joe. It's Keith here.
Well, it's interesting because it concerns, the public complaints and stuff about the marine activity over there. And every time one of those planes take off, I stand up and cheer and drink a beer. So I'm probably not going to be supportive of complaints, but I will definitely take them and air them like I'm sure Ted did.
And you'll probably be drunk because you're having a beer every time one takes off.
So Ted represented us on that group for quite a long time. So they all miss him, but they'll get used to Joe.
Well, the big change is he was Navy and I'm Air Force. We're above everything. So.
Is
All right.
it altitude or attitude?
Yes.
All right. Unless there's any more business, we are adjourned. See you all next month.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye, everyone.